handle something like that when you have so many different people to manage, so many
Yeah,
different, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. So if we were having a study session, let's see, let me get this together. All right. So if we were having with everything you teach, you need to teach at least 4 different learning styles. So I said last night it had to happen because it gave me to observe how they study,
Mm-hmm.
um, and how they learn. We identified no one really read. They just took the shortcut and studied the study guide. But if you would read in between and study your terms, you would have been able to get the answers. So the question was, how do we make sure everybody is getting what they need, even though their study and learning styles are different?
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure in each that there's a portion of your training that adapts to their learning style. So yes, if one likes music, we may make one section may have the music on, the practical. The practical may have the rhythm beat because they're up working and it kind of keeps them going. If we may be in a setting, one option is the one that does not want the music can put them some headphones on. Or the
Okay.
one that does want the music, you can put the headphones on. Okay. And
Yeah.
so they have their personal music right here. That may be a classroom investment of maybe 2 headphones and make sure the class takes care of them, wipe them down. They can plug it into their phones and they're listening to their music, but they're also producing at the same time. Are they bothering anybody else? No, you can make it to where if you're going to have your own space in your little corner, take your headphones. When you come back, this worksheet needs to be done. And you only have about 30 minutes. You got about, you can put the time on there. For me, you're going to have students who are visual. So you're going to have to show a picture, some video, or do a demo. You got some that like, look, give me a peppermint, okay, and give me a quiet place. So I would give them the information and tell them exactly what they're supposed to be doing and let them be.
Okay. So in when schools first start, I mean, I know that students come in periodically or often or whatever, but is it okay to like specifically like ask them what's your learning style, or you know what I'm saying? When you're
Yes,
just
yes, yes. There, there's even ways. There's.
you
I
went out.
say that. I
Can
don't
you say
say what's your learning style. Almost,
it keep going out, Destiny?
huh?
You keep like
Hello,
going out.
hello, hello. I'm here.
Yeah, it's lag. It keeps skipping when you talk. It'll cut off and then it'll start back.
Hold
Mm-hmm.
on, hold on.
But I was gonna ask the same thing. Do they know their learning style? Can we ask them what it is? You took the words right out of my mouth.
I wonder if it's like somewhere online that you know how like love language test and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if it's something out there that you could actually give them, because you know some people may not know until you know the lady probably didn't know that it was music that got her going. You know what I'm saying? Until y'all till last night. So I wonder if it's something. I'm gonna research and see
Yeah,
that
but
could help in the
they're good.
classroom. Yeah.
That'd be a good starting point to get to know it,
Right.
like on the first day orientation.
Yes, a good icebreaker.
Yeah, because and then like I think you can honestly ask, because I think anybody can evaluate themselves and then say like, hey, well, I think I am this type of learner from reading the description of it. I think you
Mhm.
can just incorporate that just all around, just to see what they know about themselves. That'll make our jobs a whole lot easier.
Right,
We'll
right.
know what we doing.
Mic check.
Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
Wow.
Wow. On the beat.
Right. Hold on.
Reverberate.
Let me leave. All right, y'all. If y'all look in the link, I did put one learning style assessment on there. See if it's still in there.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. There are several assessments, and it is definitely our duty to find out how they learn and how they study. Okay. And so we even have a whole chapter on it as we wrap ourselves back around. We even have a whole chapter on learning styles and study styles and also teaching styles. Okay. Um, so let me jump into pulling us back up.
Yeah, that'll be helpful, that assessment.
Yeah, there are several of them. So okay. All right. So yes, there are several ways that you can learn their learning styles and teaching styles. Your teaching style can match how they learn. It's going to change with every class because no two classes are ever going to be the same. The goal is for every time that you plan to teach a class, you need to touch at least four of the ways that they learn. Okay. And so there are multiple ways that a person could learn. They may even have two different learning styles, one or more, but you need to touch in every lesson four ways that they learn. And so even though you have what you're teaching, you're going to have to vary how you teach. So yes, we could teach hair cutting if they watch a video, if they read it, if you say it, but also they got to do it. All right. And so those are four different ways that a person may pick up how to learn something. And then it's just a repeat and retain type of situation. Let's look at the desired performance goals now that our screens are back up. Um, we're going to explain the purpose of grading, explain what categories should be graded and when grading should occur. List the characteristics of 8 different types of grading styles. So now we got 8 different types of grading styles. Establishing a test plan. That's what's going forward now while I'm on break. I'll be on break. And then list advantages and disadvantages of various types of questioning used in evaluation. Here we come to the types of questioning that is going to when you get ready to go for your practical component of for your instructor test, you will have to create a test. Okay. By you creating that test, you have to have 2 different types of questioning. All right. And so you have to know when you learn your audience, you learn your students. What we remember, we do not give it to them, but I also I've seen teachers who just make it absolutely
impossible for students to pass. That's not what we're doing. Okay. They're going to work for it. They need to also learn from it. Um, and I have my friend um, all the time that we always talk about how well he is giving them information. They should be learning it, and then how well the class is graded on that information. And sometimes he has the great test scores and is bringing them up, and sometimes nobody passes the test score. But what we have to make sure is everything on the test that we have covered or touched some kind of way within those learning styles. If I know I have students that have challenges in reading, that's really where a lot of our challenges lie. If I have students, even adults, that have challenges in reading, I'm not going to give them a 100% essay type of test. Okay. However, I learn is not how they learn. So I make an ASA essay test, and I can take my thoughts and write it. This may be a group that can't do that. So you build your tests and quizzes on the characteristics of how they learn and they study in the classroom. If you know you get more participation for match it and fill in the blank, that's going to be my go-to in the classroom. Okay. And if someone wanted something extra, or if I was to do a bonus, I may do one essay question. That's a bonus. Whether they do it or not, it does not take away from anything. It just simply adds. And so we definitely have to know who our group is, definitely who our group is, how they learn, how they study, and this is how you're going to build your exams. I always tell people, if your students are more visual, match it and not fill in the blank, match it, and a multiple choice are going to be what they need. And last night I was going over the review. Okay. As I was going over the review, the students, I had one student who knew she had studied the answers. She's only studied the multiple choice. She knew word for word before I was saying it. And so that's a problem to me, even though she may think, yeah, I got that right, but you did not read. And if anyone ever throws you a wrench and breaks this question up, you'll be lost because you did not read for the book. You just pretty much studied this and you're working out of your little exam book, and that's all you're working out of. But you gotta open the book. You have complete access to everything. And so that's something as educators we reiterate. And if they don't do it, you have to grade them accordingly. But the type of grading that you're going to do has to match the style that you're teaching. Okay. They got to be informed. Most college levels, they may do a curve. They may do a group grading. They may do a whole lot of different things to get students to a place, especially if they know they're struggling. It's not a requirement, but they do that. And so you'll learn about that as well. Describe performance goals, continue explaining the purpose of grading, what categories should be graded and when grading should occur, list the characteristics of 8 different types of styles of grading. We had that one. Explain the purpose and use of Lexis scales. Those are grading scales, rating scales, checklists, performance checklists, multiple category grading, and rubrics. Now, RUB, RICS was what they use for a lot of their procedures. And when we do assessments is this: simply, once they've been taught and we go down the rubric, I need it graded, okay? The students get to do self-reflection, which means amongst this, which step of this facial do you need help in? Do you need more work? As they would do their facial, I'm also assessing how well they're doing each step and if they're skipping steps. That assessment at the end tells them where they need to work on a little bit more. Okay, so rubrics are going to be very important, especially if you're going to have if you're trying to train them to come out of a certain way. Okay. And so we have Miss Adrian, Miss Red, many of you guys know that you have a lot of unlicensed professionals who are actively working in suites and salons. When they're challenged for licensure, they come back. They want to go into the schools and then they want to get their license. Well, we have a lot of students that are backwards. They're out actively working and then they come in and get their license. And what has happened a lot of times, advance the license way gets set in, you know, it's doing whatever you want and have I learned it, this how we do it. And it gets kind of hard to break that. And so that's why we bring in the rubrics so they can see that they're not following or that they are following. And this is how well they're doing. And it's just an assessment between the educator and the student, we call them learners, between the educator and the learners to see what areas we need to work on. And so that's one way that we do evaluations. And we do them like every 3 chapters. So the next chapter coming up, they're going to have an assessment, which is an evaluation based on everything they've learned in the last 3 chapters. Do they get an opportunity to, it's just like a midterm. Do they get an opportunity to study those? They do. Okay. And we'll take a whole week. And if need be, we'll take a week and a half to make sure every student goes through assessment. Because what I need is for them to leave school, get licensed, but be able to actively work and get paid for what they do. All right. So you have a lot of people that are out that the salons come back and tell the schools they don't have the skills. So my job is to make sure they have the skills so they can keep gainful employment. And if they can keep gainful employment, then schools who get financial aid can continue to get financial aid and the numbers go up. So every little thing piggybacks on top of another thing. You'll also explain the basic principles and steps involved with academic advising of students, which means as the educator, you will have to advise them, not so much on, I know we always celebrate them, but we do have to advise them, like I just said in the assessments, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and how does that translate into grades. Okay. How does that translate into grades? At the same time, whatever your curve or whatever your grading points are, it needs to be established prior to you giving them an assignment. It has to be established prior to you giving them assignment. And then if you're giving them points, you have certain students that'll say, how many points I got for this? How many points do I get for that? How many points do I get for, and they're calculating points. And if you're taking off points, your explanation of why you took off those points becomes so much more important. And so in the grading, we know it's very important. Let's make sure that the educators are crossing their T's and dotting their I's and you're grading them accordingly. Okay. You cannot just throw something up and they just supposed to not have an explanation behind it. They got to have an explanation behind it. When we advise students also, we need documentation. Documentation those students can sign or not is still going in the files. A lot of times we do the documentation in place because we know something is going to happen. For my students, when they first signed up, they knew that they needed to make an 80% to pass DCI. The 60% does it. The state has a mandate of 70%. That's the state. In our paperwork, DCI raised it 10 points. and you have to have an 80. And so different schools will have different pass rates, but the minimum that they're started at will be a 70. So for our students, we just make it an 80 and we just make it known throughout. An 80 is our only passing. 80 to 100 is the only grade significant for passing. If you don't make it, you have to retake it. Okay, period. That's our thing. If you don't make it to that 80 to 100, you're gonna have to retake it. And academic advising includes an action plan as well. Being a solutionist. Here's what the facts are. This is the grade. And you can give them praise also that celebrates them when they have made major steps and accomplishments towards their successful grades. But the advising, the action plan will go something like this. What are we going to do in the next 30 days to increase this? And then I will be checking up on you. You can say every week I check up on you to see how well you're doing. Okay. And by the time you get to the next evaluation, that you should have made an increase from where you were to where you are right now. And so in educators, that's our responsibility. If we need to call in backup, that's what our directors are there for. Our managers, our supervisors, that's what they're there for. If you feel like, and sometimes you'll have schools that educators would not be the advisors to their students. So if we, all three of us are teachers, I would probably advise Miss Anderson's students, and Miss Red would advise my students, and Miss Adrian, I'm sorry, Miss Adrian will advise Red students. So we will switch it up, okay? Because sometimes it takes another person to get the job done. Not to say because we could be too familiar with our students. And to take it seriously, we switch it up a little bit. You will provide that educator with the written forms that has the grades, attendance, and suggestions of what should happen. And while that educator meets with the students, they will come up with an action plan and will continue to follow up. And so those academic advisors will switch, will rotate students throughout the year. So most of the times we will talk with our own students and document, and then you have some schools that are larger would choose certain educators to say, hey, you got A through E. And they'll break it down like that. So we'll have academic advisors such as what they will have in college. What's in a grade is a step or stage in a course or process. Okay, a step or stage in a course or process. That's a grade. Grade means a lot to a whole lot of people, or a number, a letter that shows how well one has done. Okay, what to grade? You're going to grade theory. You're going to grade skills. You're going to grade professionalism. You're also going to grade participation. When to grade? On the go. Outcome evaluation. On the way out, outcome evaluation, and at the gate, summative evaluation. Okay, just looking at the last two here. Let's have a little detail. Okay, on the way is the outcome evaluation, often accomplished through pre-testing prior to learning and post-testing, which occurs after teaching and learning. Okay. And so pre-testing and post-testing allows learners to see how they are doing. Let me close this door. This is ridiculous. All right, so pre-testing prior to learning. So before you start a lesson, sometimes you may ask students, okay, we're getting ready to go over um, lace installments, wig installments. What do you know? I'm gonna give you a little test just to see where you guys are. So I want to know where you are. It's like a little quiz. So do the best of your ability to answer the questions. It doesn't go for a particular grade. I just need to know exactly where you guys are right now. You may give them a 10 question test that you built about installing lace wigs or maybe the products or maybe even lash extensions, whatever it is. But it's a pre-test, okay? And so you can give it to them and see how well they do. And it can be any number of questions, okay? Any chapter, any number of questions, okay? In the beginning, before they knew it, they may have scored, you remember those scores, they may have scored low, they may have scored medium, or they may have scored high. So you'll hold that over to the side. You will teach your lesson, okay? You'll go through and you'll teach your lesson. And then you give them a post test, all right? So after the lesson, now let me give you the actual test again and see how well you do. And you should see those numbers go up, just an increase of skills go up. And let them see the evaluations. Look at it what we did before. Now look at how much you learned afterwards. And you can even do that in lecture as well. Especially if you're a person that gets a little nervous, you can say, okay, guys, so we're going to talk about lace or lash extensions today. Tell me, before we start, tell me everything in your head that you know. I got 7 markers. I need 7 people go to the board. Just randomly, y'all come to the board and write down anywhere, all over the board, whatever you know about lash extensions. I'm also evaluating what they know. So I'm doing, it's a quiz, but it's just not a written quiz. And then from there, we'll start teaching. Okay. And then we can also still do the post test and then evaluate how they are doing and what they've observed after you have taught the lesson. Okay. Um, it says grades given throughout the course of study result in outcome evaluation. We'll add all that up into a summary and bam, we'll have that percentage. It says at the gate, summative evaluation is the process of assigning grades after testing has occurred. Could be in the chapter or other designated checkpoints through the course. All right. So you may have a course that a chapter that is really long. And so you can break the chapter up into test 1, test 2, and then test 3. Okay. Some of those chapters may be diseases and disorders, or it may be anatomy and physiology. All right. So, whereas it's not a big thing at the end, and as you're teaching, you test, as you're teaching, you test, and continue to move on down. And so, we have to do a lot of consideration when we are creating those tests and how we want to grade it. Grading by disposition, with spite, with personal fetish, without risk. Okay. These are some things. These are some grading styles we definitely have to evaluate. And it may even become triggers because you may have even had a teacher that didn't really like you and they graded you based on them not liking you. Okay. That's really not a good characteristic. It's not a tool, the characteristic we would put in our toolbox. And I wouldn't want anybody to know that. Grading by disposition is grading based on mood of educator. You know, we hear that all the time, grading on the mood of the educator. They just cranky today. Okay. Grading with spite based on not liking the learner. They don't like me. We may have heard our kids say some things like this. Grading by personal fetish, targeting personal pet peeves of the educator. Okay. Things that irks you, the student may do it. You just decide to grade accordingly. Grading without risk, giving average grades to everyone all the time. No one has been evaluated effectively, and no one, so it kind of builds a mediocrity. Okay. Students become very normal, average, mediocre. They never are challenged to do anything else or go any further. Grading by assumption, okay, based on prior performance by the learner, whether positive or negative, because of what someone did before. It may not be the case today. Okay, grading in absentia, grading work that has not been seen by the educator. You just grading, you ain't seen nothing, ain't checked nothing. Grading improvement only, grading based on the degree of improvement made by the learner rather than based on specific performance criteria. You'll find that sometimes this one is used to help improve someone's grade. Okay, it's like giving the student a chance to really get their grade improved. And then grading with warm fuzzies, giving everyone a good or great grade all the time. It's still not challenging, and you may give false consumption that they're really doing well, and they're not doing well at all. So those are some of the grading styles. Let's look at the test plan. Relevant material to course objectives, weights applied, and tests on content of lesson. It says educators must select material for testing which is relevant to course objectives. Y'all, this is so, so important. I know there's a lot of material for particular courses. One thing you need to know about my lady, the educator, your tests are built on a higher grade level than everybody else. Mostly everybody else is on an 8th grade level. Okay, 8th grade. So our textbooks for cosmetology is seamlessly 8th grade level. All right. Which means that's why our 16-year-olds who are completed 10th grade can come in and ace it, because it's on their level, or they are above that level. It's written on an 8th grade level. All right. You may be a master's, doctorate. You got to understand a certain level of learning can only be applied to where it needs to be applied. And it's only so much that students can learn. If we're talking sanitation, I'm going to work with what they gave me in this textbook as the core foundation of sanitation. Okay, infection control, hygiene. I'm working with what they gave me. My bonuses, I'm going to add different things to it. Maybe some articles. It may be some videos, but I'm never going to add to the lesson and then test on that and not make it more of the lesson that's actually in their book. That's where we have a major, major problem. I know someone that does that and did that. And so you're teaching, and you need to be teaching the plan, what's on the lesson plan, what's in the curriculum. And you can expand it for teaching aids, but you should not be going out getting all of this other information and bringing it back to the students. And that information outweighs what's in their books. So you're teaching them information that won't even reference the test towards their license. Now we got a problem that they get over to it. They know they've had sanitation, but they don't see none of the stuff that was in the book. Now we have a problem. That student has to be retaught this information. So we want to make sure that we have relevant information. How do you have relevant information as an educator? You keep learning, always being a student, bringing in new stuff, adding to what they have in their book, not taking over the book, adding to what they have in the book. How else do you bring relevant information? Watch videos. And when I travel, I go to trainings. Okay. When I travel, I go to trainings, I may teach at trade shows, I may do consulting wherever I am. I'm bringing back information that is relevant and that's considered a matter that involves their testing. Okay. And so I'm not taking them too high, not taking them too low. I want all the information to be relevant. Most of the time, I say you can use this right now. You go back into the classroom, you can use this right now today. So you want to make sure your material is up to date and it's relevant. Okay. You must also apply weights to each content area to be tested. Here's weights. How much does that area weigh as far as grading? So weights. If I was to weight a haircut, okay, I'm going to weight the tools, how the student performed the cut, the safety, and the checking. So if I have four things, this it needs to equal out to 100. 25% would be on the tools, 25% on the actual cut, 25% on the safety, okay, and the finished product, 25%. That's me giving weights to the value of that haircut. Now, when a student finishes a haircut, I can say whether they made a 50 or whether they made a 75 or whether they made 100. I can say that. And they say, well, why I didn't make 100? Well, you didn't have all your tools in place. That dock you a certain percentage, a certain weight. And so knowing the value of what we're asking them to do, it takes a little pre-planning, but that's how you're able to distinguish who is moving forward and who is kind of staying in their same place. And you're not giving a good, great type of grade to everybody. Your weight, the weights are causing, is allowing you to see their challenges. So every grade needs a weight. The weight also could be cumulative, once you get all their grades together. All right. And so 50% we know of our test is going to be theory and 50% is going to be practical. That's the weight. It's been the weight for a long time. When you look at in your Tennessee State Board textbooks, not textbooks, but at your let me go here. Where's the downloads? Okay, I stopped share so I can come back on. So I'm gonna show you these weights. And Adrian, I need to send this over to you as well. All right, so the instructor test taker guide let's go and look at the weights. Okay. Let's look at this first component. You have 6 areas for theory. The 6 areas that you're going to be tested in for your instructor's license for the theory exam. Section 1, there's 5 questions. Section 2, 10 questions. Section 3, 18 questions. Section 4, 5 questions. Section 5, 12 questions. And then state law, 10 questions. Okay. You have a total of 50 questions. All right. So you would say the weight of this exam, you have to get it's worth 100%. The weight of this exam is 2 points per question. All right. So if you have 100, you can possibly make 100, and you only have 50 questions. In order to get 100, that means each item is worth 2 points. All right. So with 5 items here, this is worth 10 points. 10 items here, this is worth 20 points. 18 items here, this is worth 36 points. 5 items here, 10 points. Classroom management, 12 items, that's 24 points. State law, 10 items, that's 20 points. Okay? And so since we know the value of all these areas that's going to be tested on, students can now say, hey, I need to make sure not only I study all these, I need to also study the ones that has the most weight. Which one has the most weight? 18 items is going to times 2 is going to give you 36 points. So you're, as an instructor, you got to get teaching methods because that's 36% of your exam. That's presentations and demonstrations. That's implements and equipment used for instruction. That's student motivation and maintaining student interest. And then it's instructor characteristics and teaching style. That's the bulk of your theory exam, is teaching methods at 36 points. What will come next after that would be curriculum lesson plans, 10 items times 2, that's 20 points. Okay? So the weight, these would be the areas I definitely study. Classroom management at 12, that equals 24 points. I'm going to study the heavyweights, because if I get the heavyweights, if I happen to miss anything, the little bitty things won't hurt me so bad. All right. So when it comes to you guys testing, you have weights. They have been points assigned to each question that you're going to have that will give you over whether you're going to gain 2 or you're going to lose 2. Once you're an instructor and just say you didn't get to renew your license on time and they're asking you to renew your license, you may have to take the Tennessee law exam again. You won't have to take anything else. It's the Tennessee law exam, okay? They said it's 25 questions. Look at here, 100% for 25 questions. How do you find out how much each question is weighted? You do 100 divided by 25. That gives you For you guys, how many points for each question? Do the
I'm sorry,
math.
4. I was on mute. I'm talking to mute. It's 4.
4 questions, 4 points, right?
Right.
So it's just like also if you look at how many quarters it takes to make $1. You guys, I want this pod to be right for y'all so bad. Because if you miscalculate this, it miscalculates that grade. And ooh, when you miscalculate that grade, they almost like it, they'll lose trust. Yeah, or they'll think you're trying to sabotage them or something. It's just how it goes. But this part, if no other part works, you gotta have you gotta have your weights right. Okay. And your weights gotta make sense. And it can't be to benefit one student, it's to benefit everybody. Okay. So you're gonna have 25 questions, and the questions are gonna come from these areas. I would tell my students if I had to build a test, I'm going to build my test from these areas: meeting license requirements, renewal, board responsibilities, displaying the license, salon owner and cosmetology school manager responsibilities, change of address, displaying sign pertaining to client's rights. I would build, so my goal would be build me a test, 25 questions from these areas. And this test is going to be worth 100 points. Each 100%. Each question is worth 4 points. Educating the client, the student, on what you're giving them, how much it weighs, it just gives them a more sound. If they're a mathematical person, they're using those numbers to help them break down, and they're using those numbers to help them measure what their grade should be. Okay. And so if you don't do anything else, make sure your grading is up to par and that you're very clear about it and the students don't waver. Okay. When it comes to the grade. Now, the new thing with state board, they don't give out grades anymore on the practical. They only have the percentages and grades for the theory. The practical, they say yes or they say no. And your yeses have to outweigh your no. Okay? Your yes outweighs your no's. That's how you find out if you pass. So, extra steps that people do to kind of try to show that they know what they're doing could really throw you off on the practical because the prompter don't know how to grade that. They only have a list of items that they're looking for and they have to say yes or they have to say no. Okay? So, that was just an example of weights. Um, and then I wanted to show you, like here for your practical exam, these are the items you got to do. And I think it shares the weights. Okay. Like with you guys, it actually tells you, did you have a point for each one? All right. And this is what they're looking at. Anything extra you're adding in this section, they don't know how to grade it. They're going to say yes or no. And your yeses are the ones that get the points. So on and so on and so on. It comes down to here. This is weighted scoring as well. The passing score for the entire practical portion is 70. They got to have at least a 70%. Based on the number of tasks for each practical component, the following are the weights. So there's a weight to get you to their passing rate. This test is composed of these items, and this is the weight. Y'all, we gotta make sure we have this, and we gotta make sure it's balanced, and we gotta make sure the students know what the weight is. So the lesson plan for lecture and demonstration is 22%. Handout for lecture, 8%. Sample exam, 9%. Pre-exam setup and disinfection, 13%, and lecture demonstration, 48%. Okay. And let me tell you this, if you lecture well, and you may be a strategist, you say, okay, how do I pass this? The only thing I need is 70%. I'm going to make sure I lecture well. I'm going to teach. I know it ain't nobody in that room for me to teach, but I'm going to teach like I ain't never taught before. That's 48%. I'm going to go up here to lesson plan for lecture and demonstration and make sure my lesson plans are off the chain, because that's 22%. If I just turn in lesson plans and teach, that's 70%. I've passed my exam. So the bonus stuff is the handout, the exam, and the setup for the practical. All that's bonus. All right. And so most of the time when you walk in, Miss Rosalyn, because you're going to go first, when you walk in and hand them your handout and lesson plan and sample quiz, that's half of your that's going to be half of your grade right there. Okay. So we make sure all of that is in place, it's legible, it's they can read it, everything. But that's weights. Okay, that's weights. Any questions?
When they saying this pre-exam setup and disinfection, they do that. I thought we could already have that done before it start, or do we just have to just briefly say that we've done it and then move on?
That's the practical. Remember, when you come in for let me go back to it.
So I thought I remember you saying we can have a mannequin already draped with the towel and stuff.
So when you come in for the practical, you come in with your kit bag with whatever you're going to teach, right? Mm-hmm. And you first you're doing your theory. So you got to start that cleanup first. Mm-hmm. And so you just set your stuff up. So your kit is over there. The theory portion, you can't set the practical stuff up. The theory thing is going to be your flip chart and your handout, your markers. So you can wipe the table down and set that stuff up.
So I meant for the practical. So this is right, pre-exam setup is something for the theory part.
Okay, remember that when you're going for the instructor component, you got to teach a minimum of 30 minutes. You'll move from theory and then you'll go right into your practical. All right. So when you come in first, you're going to move into the theory. You can't set the practical up in the theory component. So the only thing you can do that's a part of your cleanup is show that you have wiped down your table and set your flip chart up.
Okay, gotcha.
And then after you do your 15 minutes, I'm just saying 15 minutes. After you do your 15 minutes of theory, you'll say, okay, class, let's move over into the practical. Okay. Over into the practical would be now you're starting to get ready to drape your mannequin and things of that nature. All right. Or whatever the practical may be. It may be nails, it may be braiding, it may be whatever. But you already have, if you bring in tripod, your tripod is already set up with the mannequin. It's just sitting over on the side.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. But 30 minutes to an hour, most of the time people peg it right at 30 minutes. But that's 13% is pre-exam setup and disinfection. And what is that? That's making sure whatever you're working on has a drape, your table is wiped down, and you have gloves. Okay. And whatever you're working in, it's just sitting over here on the side. And so when I would pull that out of the kit when it's time to work on that. But if you're taking a tripod and a mannequin, the tripod and mannequin is just sitting over there. And then when it's time for you to move over to the practical component, that's when you can put your gloves on and start draping.
Okay. But the thing that we can officially have done is the tripod and the mannequin setup. And they need us do the disinfection of the table and everything else.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would also advise, since the board is heavy on sanitation and things of that nature, is while you're putting the gloves on, explain to them, okay, always remember to do this, guys. You can do the hand sanitizer. Do the hand sanitizer, and always sanitize your hands, wash your hands, do the hand sanitizer, and put your gloves on before you perform any service. And so that's going to be saying, okay, she's educating them about sanitation. Then you move on over to your lesson. Um, just to give a little heads up that you did talk about sanitation component in your lesson.
Okay, do we have to have barbicide set up?
Depending on what you're going to do, and yeah, you will have that set up.
Okay. And then we
You
can
will
always
have that.
set it up.
It'll be in it should be in your kit. And so which one you said you may do?
I think I'm gonna go with braiding, I think. So will I have
Okay.
to have barbicide dry for my combs?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I already
And
have it set up like the tripod, or do they need to see me do that? But you know what? That'll take some time out. So that's probably wise to actually set that up afterwards, right?
yeah, and then you're looking at, not spending a whole lot of time in there, but it just kind of helps you flow. You know what you need to do next.
Right.
I'm looking at this here where it says lecture and demonstration, 2 points. Use effective opening lines to introduce topics, present accurate description of procedures. So even if you're going to be demonstrating, you're going to talk a little bit about it. That'll take up some time as well, about what you're doing. Present ideas clearly and concisely, refer to notes, explain key components, make use of handouts. So in referencing the handout that I gave you, you guys can always go back and look at the procedure and just different things like that. Emphasize, you see 512, key
Yeah.
concepts of sanitation and disinfection.
Right.
All right. So throughout the whole thing, you'll be talking about, remember, protecting your client. Remember, having the gloves. Remember, if you drop something, you pick it up and you can put it in the single use or the multi use bag. And then summary, bringing it all together. So, and that may be, you may only get one braid out because you're doing so much talking and instruction at the same time. And
Right.
so you may don't plan to try to do half a head. It's just they only need to see one, no more than like one or two braids, but probably one is going to be what you need. And then you're talking and explaining it as you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that on that one. But you see the weights?
Yeah.
Everything has a weight to it. And so stop.
But now it's to me how you referenced it though, because I'm trying to remember by memory, but it's literally right there on the paper.
It's right there. It's right
Right
there.
there.
Let me go back to yeah, let me go back to our screen. But yeah, we just need to see everything we do has a weight to it. It has a value. And we get to determine that. And if the students doesn't have, they don't have anything to challenge them and to study further, they'll only do the mediocre stuff. And so our students are, they're challenged. I don't want to say I'm gonna give them some more challenge, but I am gonna give them some more challenge because I want to see them conquer that fear. And also I saw some anxiety. And I also asked them that, do you ever get scared when you test? Do you ever get fearful when you test? And there's a way to ask everything to be, and you got to have tact with it, because this is where you also discover that some students may have learning challenges like ADHD, they may be dyslexia, so many different things. So you have to be very, very mindful of how we say things. So even though we look at our assessment, you say, well, how can I say that's not demeaning? Or how can I say that doesn't rub someone the wrong way? You can give them the written assessment, and I have a one-on-one, like a 5-minute sidebar with them to let them express to you how they learn.
Mm-hmm.
I've even had a student that had reading issues, and we addressed that through pictures. And there's something called window painting. They can draw, and if I had a nice person that could draw, I would incorporate part of their grade would be drawing. Okay, using what they got, and you'll be like, "What? Yeah, there's something called window painting as a test option. That means even though this is the procedure, I need you to draw the procedure in these blocks." And then you go back and you look, you can read the story of the procedure through pictures. And you'll be like, what? Yeah, it's a way to do that. And then any students that are having challenges with testing and it's documented, when you set them up for PSI, they can also request special testing, which means they can get someone to read it to them, read the questions to them, and then they do the answers. Or if they have is documented like a rainbow, some rainbow form of autism that's very wide these days. If it's documented, PSI is supposed to do whatever they can to help this person overcome that learning disability and get that license. So it's a lot of help out there. And in fact, when I go to the board on the 2nd, is that next Monday? Yeah. When I go to the board on the 2nd, I'm going to talk about the barriers and challenges in the classroom when it comes to teaching those individuals that have those type of issues. And making sure finally that we test on content of lesson. Do not test them on something you did not teach them. You're going to ruin their confidence and they're going to fall back in the classroom. So make sure we test on the content that we taught them. Okay. True, false questions, the advantages, and we're getting ready to get off. The advantages, lengthy tests created in a short period of time. Students can read and respond in a short period of time. Disadvantages, student has 50% chance of success without the knowledge. So you got to give them the knowledge in order for them. They got to know the information in order for them to choose a true and false, because they have to decipher what one word made it false and what twisted and made it true. Okay. And then study may place into memory incorrect information. So that's a disadvantage. You got to make sure that information is true for them to start to decipher what's true and what's false. All right. Matching, advantages, disadvantages, test recall. For advantages, they can recall for tests. Associations. Sometimes I do matching, guys, because I know if having a whole lot of words for certain generations, they're not going to read all of it. They do a good job at scheming through. Okay. So matching helps them associate one thing with another. When I teach state board, I like to teach state board through matching. Okay. Because if you look at the state board handouts, it's all black and white, real little letters, and it's a lot of information printed on the page, each page. And sometimes it can go from 15 to 30 some pages. That's a lot. Students don't know, guess what, where to start. Okay. So I'm a mathematical learner. I learn through anything with numbers. I'm going to catch on to it easily. So if you guys have to teach me, do things in steps, if it's in a system of what goes first, second, third, I'm going to learn. You give me a task, okay, 1, 2, 3 things you need to do. I'm going to come back. All those things need to be done. Don't worry about it. It's going to be done. So I'm a mathematical learner. I learn on systems. I can count money really well. And so there actually may be somebody out there that learns like me in the classroom, or they just can't do a whole lot of words. So what I initially do is I'm going to take the numbers, all the numbers that are in our state board. I did it last night, and you can probably look at the video. I did it yesterday. If you look at the natural hair video for natural hair. on YouTube, on our YouTube. Um, you take the numbers, and I start with the what it, how many hours it takes for each course. Tennessee, cosmetology, 1,500. So now every time the students, I may have cosmetology, nails, aesthetics, all that on one side. And then I may have 1,500, 750, 600, 300 on the other side. And the students get to match which ones go together. Okay. So now every time I say, what do we know about 1,500? They'll say, oh, that's for cosmetology. That's how many hours they need. It's test recall. That's an easy way. That's a nice game, and it's a nice study tool for them to use before the test. They can do word association, okay? And they recall it just like that for the test. And discriminations. They know what they like and they know what they don't like. Allow chunking of important information. So it brings them to have, if I can get them to talk about this little bit of information, it will raise questions. I could take questions from that little bit of information and then start to expand their knowledge. All right. So I can talk about 14. And it was like, Miss Cox, what does 14 mean? When it comes to the state law, there's 14 board members. And guess what the board members' responsibilities are? That's the key. I just use 14 to bring them to board members. And then I get to talk about the board members' responsibility, which is a portion of the exam. Then they start at least, I basically, well, I don't want to say, I want to finish this sentence. One thing starts to lead to another, but it's not going down left, it's going right, because bring them to one thing that they all understand. There's 14 board members. And then I can start taking them from board members to their responsibilities. And then they'll start learning about the responsibilities. So sometimes you bring it all together with one thing, and then you can start asking questions that pan out into bigger things. Disadvantages. One answer tends to cue another answer. It does, whether correct or incorrect, like I just said. As an educator, being able to bring it back in, not going too far, and it's 11:01 for us, Central Standard Time. So I gotta, even though I want to keep going, I gotta do what, y'all? Bring it back in. I'm going to say there were 31 slides. We're on number 11. What I want you guys to do is to complete the remaining slides. Okay. Complete the remaining slides. What this is what's going to happen. We have holiday this week. All right. So I want you to clock in on holiday. All right. So you can clock in tomorrow if you think you're going to forget and you'll be traveling for Thanksgiving. You can clock in tomorrow at your regular time, and you are to complete slide 12 through 31. That represents your time. And start looking at your study guide, working on your study guide. That is a study material, okay, for chapter 12. If you don't have one, I can send it over to you. Can anybody tell me what the assignment is for the rest of the week?
Uh, Completing the rest of the slides and starting on the study guide, which I've already done. I just need to study it.
Awesome. So this is going to be dropped in the instructor training group. All right. And it's going to live in our Facebook DCI education group. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys. It's been a plum pleasure that you allowed me to be your educator today. I'm just, and I got to share my vitamins. I'm going to share it on the next one because I got to roll out. But Miss Red, we could get rolling, but I am gonna call you about that juice, okay?
Okay.
So I want you to have a great Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much, don't cook too much, don't work too hard. Miss Adrian, it's been a pleasure having you in class today. Have a great and amazing holiday. Y'all be blessed.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. Thank you.
Bye bye.